Lights go up and the cameras roll. Voices clear and we're in control. Screens are live and the signals flow. Welcome to the place where the pros all go. Talking gear and the tools we trust. What works well and what gathers dust. From the studio floor to the online stage, we bring the knowledge page by page. Live or hybrid, in room or remote. Every shot and every note. Better system, sharper sound. This is where the best is found. It's the Production Professionals Power Hour. Building better shows with skill and power. Live hybrid online too. Sharing what the experts do. Hardware, software, tested live. Helping every production thrive. Step inside the futures now. Welcome to the Power Hour. Switches, streaming, mics and light, making every moment land just right. Guests and makers join the conversation, bringing insight, crafting innovation. From the first idea to the final frame, every tool can change the game. Manufacturers, pros and brands, sharing real solutions firsthand. Live or hybrid, in room or remote. Every cue and every note. Smarter workflow, stronger shows. That's the way the power grows. It's the Production Professionals Power Hour. Building better shows with skill and power. Live hybrid online too. Sharing what the experts do. Hardware, software, tested live. Helping every production thrive. Step inside the futures now. Welcome to the Power Hour. When the pressure's on, we raise the game. New ideas and trusted names. Every week another view. Fresh tech, fresh talk. Something new. It's the Production Professionals Power Hour, where ideas and technology flower. For the shows that need to shine, for the moments that go live on time. From the gear rack to the control room view, we bring the best straight through to you. Step inside the futures now. Welcome to the Power Hour.
Greetings to everybody here and online. I'm John Drinkwater, and I've got a little bit of history in production, only since COVID. So by many here, I'm a newbie. But I love learning about tech, and I've got some exciting tech for you today. Being a programmer, it's always interesting when another programmer comes and has a conversation with me. So this show is, please bear with me. If you're doing production and you're doing production for others, you may think that this subject is not for you, but it sort of is. So please bear with us. This subject is really about the, how can I phrase this? I would consider this group the in-house production team. I am envisaging that there are people out there who have big jobs in corporate, or maybe they're contracted by corporate. And these corporate organizations have production rooms, they have webinar rooms, they have their own infrastructure, they have their home premises, they have places where they are running webinars and important meetings. Their CEO maybe has a suite that he's really proud of, that he likes showing off to the shareholders. And here's the thing. We all know the joke about the cleaner who comes along and makes the room lovely and spotless, but unplugged one of the major appliances while they were there, whether it be a PC or a server, or maybe a rooms controller. My question to you guys is really simple. When stuff doesn't work because somebody's switched it off or rebooted it, when do you find out? 5 minutes before the webinar is due to start? 5 minutes after the webinar was supposed to start? So this is the area of which we have. I've been speaking to an interesting company called Morbit. And Morbit are a software house who came up with the same problem. Now, I know there are asset-related products out there that will tell you what your equipment is and will tell you whether your machines are working. I know there's software support equipment where they can instantly connect with all the desktop PCs and remote control and fix and things like that. But what about the hardware? What about all of our equipment? Who's looking after that? Nobody? Somebody? Anybody? Well, I know the answer is no. It doesn't work. And that's why it's so great to have Mike Latta with us, who has got a reasonable amount of experience in this world, like a few decades worth. And so Mike is going to help me around this. Welcome, Mike. Great to see you, my friend.
Hello there. Hi, John. Hi, everyone.
And we've had conversations before about, for instance, your cameras and the remote control abilities of your cameras and how you can manage them, etc.
Right.
But if I said to you, name me any piece of production hardware or software, but more predominantly hardware, whether it be a sound card or a webcam or a PTZ controller, or I was trying not to mention anybody's labels here, but a video switcher.
Mm-hmm.
How many of those do you think we could ping in some way to see if they were really there?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, if anything is network capable, then the answer is yes, everything. Now,
Okay.
as far as there's different levels, of course, of what you could check. So there would be, you're checking for connectivity on the network. So you can go at the network level. So as John said, the magic word ping. So basically you will say, are you live? And the Ethernet portion of the unit can reply back and say, yeah, I'm here. I'm here. So that's very basic. But again, if we go into the hardware now, the hardware itself would then have to have something, and we'll get into that probably with this software as well, something that sends back information back to something that says, oh yeah, this is working, this isn't working, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
That is fantastic and exactly where they are going. And I say where they're going because it's a bit like our conversations with BitFocus Companion. Somebody in the background is going to have to write the code to talk to all the different pieces of hardware that you want to support. But that's where, as I said, this company is going. So they are concerned because they had the experience of stuff not being available when it's supposed to be available. And so they started looking at the whole issue of, and by the way, I know it says confidential at the bottom of the slides, but I do have permission to share these slides, and I'm not sharing the confidential slides. I'm just sharing some of the overview slides before anyone panics in YouTube. But the whole idea behind this is that, yes, there's a lot of I mean, we don't really have to go to the level that they're talking about. We all know what it's like when a piece of equipment is not turned on, is not ready, and the disaster that is. We were, again, we were 2 minutes late today because some bit of hardware didn't work exactly how it wants. It gets fascinating to me that we have an hour show, and I turn up an hour before, and I'm starting to feel that I have to be here an hour and a half before a show to get an hour show to know that it works, because it's a case of getting it working. You get it working, and then you have to make sure it's working at the end, and you can sometimes have a tea break in the middle. But what about if you're not on site? What about if, well, maybe you are on site, but you're in a 6-story building and the CEO up the top only tells you that he can't get his message out to his, I don't know, maybe it's his share price. He's going to be talking to his biggest investors, and he rings you to say it doesn't work 3 minutes before he has this meeting with his webinar investors, and it's all because somebody unplugged something and he doesn't know what to plug back in. He wouldn't know how to boot it up. He wouldn't know how to bring it back to its state. By the way, Macs Minis now recover back to they were when they're plugged in after losing power. Apple, it's a bit late to come with that feature, but at least you got it now. So just a little aside, just how many other pieces of equipment do not bring themselves back when the power is applied? And so that's what it's all about, Mike. I frankly, I think it's a really cool idea, and I'm glad somebody's doing it. Let's see if we can jump to a slide where, so this is a slide I picked out their slide deck, and this is the obvious problem. This is why we can't guarantee they can do everything, but I think it would be great to support them. There are so many different bits of equipment out there, and as Mike said, you got to ping something to find out if it's there. And what you find out about that device could be from, I know Mike's cameras, you can do great interrogation to find out exactly how they're set up, but I'm sure that lots of pieces of hardware, you can't do that. But at least if you can ping it and get a response, somebody's turned it on, and that's a start. So I like the way they've done this because they have a little app which you can smuggle into the internet and put in your local device. So it's a local node sitting somewhere. And let me blank the slides a second while I go and find the one I want. So we have this slide, and I think the one a little bit after it. So we have a dashboard of what's going on. And these little apps can sit inside your network and they talk out to the internet. So there's no external firewall holes or security vulnerability worries about this particular app, because you deploy it where you want it inside your network, and that acts like a local node to keep an eye on whatever you've asked it to keep an eye on in your network. And then it bounces the report back to the central server, so you get a status call. I like that approach, Mike. I think that's a more secure approach than opening lots of holes for lots of different devices and making it a vulnerability. If you want to, you can then jump through that app and then use that app as a gateway to then go and do whatever protocol connection you want to your device, whatever's allowed. What do you think of that approach?
Yeah, this is what I was saying when I gave sort of the little hint earlier, was that you would actually, the more you have what we would call in the industry an agent sitting on the device, and then talking back to a server, which would be the actual home machine. So it reports back. So the server will query the agent for all its X data, and then bring that back from the actual agent itself back to the server. Shall we call it the client, depending on the infrastructure that they have. Again, it could be to a server, then multiple people can go to that server and get the information, or it could be a one-to-one scenario where it's a one person having it on one of their machines, which I would never suggest. I would suggest more having the server environment where you could have anybody in the company that has access to be able to go in and check, not just one person on one PC having everything running on that PC, and then the PC is not on, then nobody's monitoring anything.
Okay.
So in that regards, agent on the device, as long as the agent can be installed on the device,
Yep.
that would be the other caveat. But let's assume the agent can be installed on the device and reporting back to the server. That is the ultimate scenario, because manufacturers don't necessarily know what specifically, again, certain clients might have certain criteria that they want to be able to manage and be able to report. So,
okay. So as I understand it, and hopefully this is going to tick your boxes, because if it gets the Mike Latter seal of approval, that is worth its weight in gold. The client, the person monitoring, it's a web page. So anybody who's going to be allowed to is going to be able to log into that and see what's going on. The little app, I didn't actually ask which operating system it runs on, but it runs inside the network as a little applet. It sends by HTTPS and in other words, standard webhook controls. It communicates to the main server where you can do all the monitoring from. So there's no outside in, it's all inside out. And that will report back all the things that are going on. If you then have a problem that you want to address, then you can, through a tunneling protocol, I think it's the phrase we're going to use. Probably, I'm not being exact because I don't want to give away anything here, but from a sort of tunneling protocol point of view, from that monitoring place, you can bounce a signal. Very non-technical. This I'm trying to be as non-technical as possible. You bounce a signal into that little applet, and then that applet allows you to talk to the device. But you talk to the device in its own language. So if it's a specific port number or whatever, you effectively use that as a jumping off point, and then you can talk to the device. And the control you have, well, that's easy to answer that. The control you have is dependent on the device and what the device control gives you. But at least you can use that applet. So rather than having to run down to the building or drive to the building or go into the network and log into the network, you can remotely use that as a jumping off point into the network. And you can deploy as many of these as you like, across buildings, across networks, across your enterprise. But effectively, it's sitting there and it's your local representative. You bounce through that, talk to whichever device you want to. You get whatever you can get out of that device, whether it just be a status message or whether you can actually then do some remote config. That depends on the device. That's their big challenge, of course, to do this to all the devices they want to support. But the principle I really like. I think it's a great idea, and I'm glad somebody's doing it.
Yeah, John. So I'm just all kinds of different scenarios going through my head. So
I thought they
when
might.
we're ready, when we're ready to do a hypothetical situation, let me know. But yeah, the capabilities again. When it comes to speaking from more of a manufacturer point of view, is that again we usually have a lot of, yes, we're going to use those three infamous letters that everybody's starting to learn a lot about, called APIs, or somewhere a way of being able to, what can you quiz on my device? Notice the word I said, quiz.
Yeah.
What can you quiz on my device that is important to you or you want to get done on my device over the network?
Yeah.
Full stop.
Now, obviously, they are selling this product to the people that need monitoring. That's why there's all these statistics about things, which is probably for a lot of our audience not something you really need to discuss, because we all know what it's like when that dirty mucky stuff hits a fan because some tech's not working and you're 15 minutes away from fixing something that's got to go live in 5 minutes. So for us, I think these stats are, they're interesting and they're good for managers and justifying people having the conversation, but we've experienced it. And in our job, I think the phrase goes that it's not the cock-ups and the problems and the explosions and the disasters and the fires and all the other misdemeanors that may happen in an event that worry us. It's our ability to hide them so nobody knew they ever happened. That's what we want to do. And that's why I like this tool. And I have now the slide that will probably make Mike as happy as I can make him. Here's an example of the techie bit. So in this, and I'm glancing over here because I've got it on the screen over there. I'm not ignoring you, dear audience. I'm just having a look at the slide. So we've got an idea here. So we've got these little things they call, oh, I'm sorry, Mike, they call them hubs. We got enough stuff in the world called a hub at the moment. We don't need another
Tell
one.
me about it. Yeah, I know. Let's add it to the list.
But this is another hub, guys. So that will confuse all of us. But anyhow, these hubs are the little devices, the little piece of software sitting within the network. And as you can see in the example, they've got somebody with a home office who could have a hub. Why not? They've got a remote office. Quite obvious once you start thinking about it. And then within the HQ, you're going to have multiple meeting rooms. You've got the CEO's boardroom. You're probably going to have a hub or two, or maybe 3 or 4, because Mike likes deploying things. So maybe a few of them dotted around to allow you to control. Maybe control is a strong word. Shall we say to monitor? It's probably the best thing. To monitor equipment that's around there. And you can see that they've been listening to Mike and they've already updated their whole documentation because it says their cloud APIs. That was not rehearsed, guys. That's just good quality thinking by Mike and the guys at Morbid. So they have some cloud APIs. And if you look at that list, what does that tell you? Well, to me, it tells you that we're not trying to be a help desk software fixing world. This is not what that product is. It does something similar, but this is to allow us to monitor the equipment that we use in the production and the video conferencing world to make sure that's online. Because to have a Mac that boots up may be good enough for the software support department because they know that machine is live. But for us, we want to know that, I don't know, it's running Zoom Rooms or it's a Neat device and therefore it's connected on the internet. It's Yealink, Cisco, Poly, all good products here. It could be Microsoft Teams just as easily. They have been working on the APIs of all those different devices to find ways that they can monitor the status of those devices and give you the control. As I said, some of you guys in the broadcast world are going to say, this is really not going to do anything for me, John. But it may do, because we're getting more to the case now where you'll take less equipment to a venue and leave more equipment back in your base because we can link the two together now much better than we ever could in the past. So there could be scenarios where maybe not as complicated as this, but a monitoring tool may be useful even in those things. Just think about your remote presenters who you can leave at home now because you can connect with them. But what about knowing if all their equipment is still working when they're there? What about having a way to remotely monitor their equipment? I think this is a very interesting product. I think it's come at the right time. Maybe you're aware of anybody else that does something similar. It's made me think about my Stream Deck. And could I do this at a Stream Deck level just for the devices in the room? Would it be good to have a little status button on my Stream Deck? If, I don't know, I'm going to have to start quoting manufacturers here, apologize, but supposing my ATEM switcher is not working because I didn't plug the blasted thing in before I came upstairs. Now, how would I know whether it was working or not unless I had something to monitor that? So if I had a little status bar, even on my Stream Deck with a little red light lit up because it can't ping, as Mike beautifully put it can't ping my Stream Deck downstairs. And if it can't ping my Stream Deck downstairs, it doesn't matter that I've got this fancy PowerPoint control system running, which I'm actually running today, by the way, because if the Stream Deck's dead, then that video signal is not going to get from that PC downstairs to me. If that Stream Deck is telling me that the ATEM, sorry, that Stream Deck is dead, that the ATEM is dead, then I might say, okay, well, I've got a backup plan because I can do a remote screen share of what's downstairs. But if I don't know which device is not working, how am I going to work out how I'm going to come over it? So I love this because I think it's a really good product, and it really starts to make people think about the importance of hardware and the security of the hardware and the uptime of the equipment in our production world. But I also like it because it also challenges me personally to start thinking, okay, how do I make sure? Because I'm not trying to put you guys out of business, but I'm very much trying to allow people to do big productions without an enormous team. Not because I'm trying to put you out of business, but because there physically aren't enough of us experts around to support all the things that are now going on. So we need to upskill as production experts. We need to be able to do this with smaller teams because there are more customers to support. And hopefully, people like Mike, who are making stuff, will be able to support companies like Morbit to give them information so that they can say when Mike's equipment's working, and give a way that it can be remotely fixed if it's just something simple or whatever. Over to you, Mike.
Yeah. So perfect example there would be, John, in the regards of our camera, we could go down the road of, is the camera alive or not? Yes or no? Can I send it a command that says, are you live? And it reports back, yeah, I'm here. Sure. That's there. Can we go down the road of, at the network level, it's pinging, but maybe the brain inside is frozen. So you could have, it could still ping, but it might not be available. The hardware itself might have locked up, but yet it's still pingable, right?
Yep.
We're calling the network as pingable. So again, you've got to be careful in that regards too, that it could be network working, but the hardware itself could not be. So you go, okay, it's pinging, great. Now ask it if it's alive. Oh, it didn't reply back. Okay. Now, it just so happens that our cameras are all PoE capable. So now you could actually then send another command if they have an API capable that will talk to the switch that our cameras are plugged into. It could tell it to shut the power on the PoE switch port off for 5 seconds and turn it back on again. And now you just did a remote reboot of the camera live. And now you just have the agent. Now you just have the agent constantly pinging the unit until it's pingable. And then after that, so are you live yet? And keep hitting that command to our camera. Then the camera will come back. Yeah, I'm alive. Okay, then you send it that next command.
Yeah.
But that just prevented you from traveling from X location to Y location to do that. This just prevented you from doing a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And that was a very simple situation that I just gave everybody. That you could actually get a lot more complex with our cameras, but I just wanted to give you that this agent, at least, Norbid, you guys should be able to at least be able to do, these simple stuff. And I don't doubt that they do, but I just wanted to make sure that the production world goes, well, how will I use this? Well, that was a simple example, but how many times have you asked somebody at that remote location, if you already have gear there, to go, oh, can you power cycle that for me?
Yeah. The infamous turn it off and on again.
Yeah. And I just gave you the perfect example of how you could, if you had one of our cameras, power recycle it, but you could be anywhere in the world.
Yeah, you could have a camera, I suppose, that's out there, and the complaint from the user is the camera's not working. If you're miles away from the venue, how do you prove that camera works and it's not, they haven't connected it properly or anything like that? Well, if you've got the ability to actually talk to the various devices, you can say, oh, well, it's you know, yeah, you could power cycle it, as Mike suggested. You could say, okay, well, I know that the camera is now working, and then I will go into the interface into the camera and config it, and then I can go into whatever system I'm using that camera is connected into, and go and then interrogate that to make sure that's connecting to that particular camera and it's set up correctly. And yeah, there's lots of scenarios where little bits are not working, and we all know how frustrating it is to try and get a stressed out user, even if they will, to follow some simple commands. I'm sure you've all been in the situation when you've asked somebody to press a button and they can't even press a button correctly because they are so stressed and panicking that they are hearing you, but their brain is not actually doing anything. You're telling them to press the B key and they're pressing the space bar because their finger just hits a key because they're falling apart. So yeah, this is why I think a whole conversation around this type of technology is really, really neat. And as I said, I will probably now start to think about what simple commands can I work in my local network so that I can make sure that I'm controlling all my devices to the point of knowing that they're working. What can I have to remotely diagnose things? And then, of course, I can then share those function calls and the APIs that I use within my thing to Morbit, and they can add that if they haven't already into their system, so they can grow the pieces of hardware that they support. But yeah, it's a very different subject to what we usually talk about here, but I thought it was a really interesting thing to bring in. We're getting good at controlling software remotely, but how do we make sure all the hardware? And maybe this will encourage manufacturers as well to think about this sort of thing. Some of them do a really good job, let's be honest, Mike, and some of them don't take any notice of this at all.
Right. Or if they do, they bury it.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is that they make it, I don't want to use the word difficult, but I guess the word is difficult to go, oh, by the way, do you happen to have capabilities of doing XYZ over the network for your product? It's not stuff that marketing departments of a lot of these companies find pretty or useful to talk about, right? Where the techs in the back end are going, well, yeah, it looks pretty. It's a camera or it's a whatever, it's a switcher. But what if that switcher is located in, London and John's in, pick another part of the UK? And is John going to be able to drive there in 30 minutes to be able to switch that camera on and off, or be able to make sure that that video switcher's on and off? No. And especially when the world of production, as many of you might be looking into, which is what we're starting to use the terminology of REMI, which is the remote capabilities of being able to do productions, that yes, a lot of venues you might be actually installing all the gear into, that you're having weekly events, maybe daily events, maybe monthly events. And how do you know that gear is going to be working? And this is exactly where the actual format of having this be able to work for you properly in that scenario of being able to call all the different types of gear. And it's not that they are limiting you to specific manufacturers. I'm sure as Morbid grows, they will be adding more and more manufacturers and more brands to their products that they want to be able to monitor, because again, that's only going to make them succeed as well.
Yeah.
So it definitely is an interesting topic, and this is definitely becoming, yes. Was this more in the unified communication world? Yes. In the video conferencing world? Yes. Because again, the gear was in that venue. But guess what, guys? What I just said there was the gear is now becoming in that venue.
Yeah.
Isn't
What
it?
about updates?
Right.
You want a firmware update? You got to go to the venue. Well, if a tool like this has a hub, please rename. It has a hub in the building that gives you a jump off point to go to that device and do a firmware update.
Yep.
And
Yep.
do
And
it
again,
the
you
day
can do it
before
while-
the webinar and not have to do 5 minutes before the webinar.
Yep. Yeah. Day before, night before. Yeah, absolutely. If the camera was being used during the day, then schedule it for after hours. And I'm pretty sure this unit could actually probably do everything while you're sleeping too. You could get to that point too, because it's a matter of just setting up some sort of scheduling within the actual software for it to go, agent, yeah, okay, yeah, send that firmware to XYZ camera now. And you're sleeping. Then all you have to do is have Morbid report back that, yeah, I've checked the camera. It now told me that it's now at version X because it was at version Y. And now I know that it's up to date. And now I just sent you an email. And now you don't have to worry about firmware being updated on the camera because the camera reported back because of all the stuff that you told me I should check. While after it did the update, you told me to check things to do. I checked all those things and I did them. And here's the report.
Fantastic.
So you already know that for that event that's coming up that day, that you made sure that you had it check everything that you're going to be using, especially for that event from the new version of the firmware to do it. So if it failed, you could probably even tell Morbid to go, okay, no, certain things didn't work. The firmware worked, but the certain new things that you wanted to do didn't work. And this is what didn't work. Do you want me to change the firmware back? Or you give it the criteria in Morbid to the point of, oh, this criteria, yeah, this one is if this one doesn't work, that's okay. Don't change the firmware. But if multiples of these don't work, you say 3 of these new functions that we used to use in the old firmware don't work in the new firmware. Yeah, send it back to the old firmware and report back.
Terrific.
I
But the
can't
catch
see where
is,
all this stuff can be done.
yeah, but the catch is the manufacturers have got to make the features available. This is not,
Right.
In a way, this is not Morbid's problem.
That's right.
The problem
No,
is
100%. It's
the
not.
hardware.
It's not Morbid's problem. Yeah. Yeah. Again, yes. So let's put it this way: if the manufacturers have the capabilities there, then Morbid could easily do this without any problems. Updates. As we saw, this has got Zoom capability, so they can obviously update Zoom rooms inside the actual Zoom room unit. There's all the different types of scenarios that this could go into. If there's a new version of Teams, it goes in there. Version of WebEx goes in there. It doesn't have to be limited to just firmware too, because that device. So it could be like the ATEM. All of a sudden, Blackmagic came up with a new version of the firmware that allows that to do X. But then you send the new firmware over, the ATEM, you quiz the ATEM, it comes back, it reports all good. Then you have it do some tests. Again, you're all sleeping while it's doing all this stuff. As long as the gear is on, there's so many things that can be done that night before at the venue when everything is turned on that could be done and tested for you, where you walk in to the office that next morning and all of a sudden, yeah, hands up, everything's done. Yeah, Johnny.
I suppose I should borrow a phrase from Zoom and make a safe harbor statement. We've not been playing with Morbid software, but that's not the conversation I had with them. The conversation I had with them was, this is a tool we're working on. What shall we do with it? Can you help us to get the information to support as much equipment as possible? So all the things Mike has talked about may not even be possible. I'm guessing, actually, I'm going to take the negative view that they're not possible today. But I love what he's talking about because it's similar to the conversation I had with them a couple of days ago. And it may be because we said this is a manufacturer's issue. If the tools are not available from the manufacturer, then nobody, including Morbit, can do any of this. It may be in the near future that if we make a big issue of this, which I think as a community we should, manufacturers are going to find that we'll make buying decisions which will include, can we control, update, and fault fix your device remotely through a network? Let us worry about the network, but you need to give us some sort of device control from the network, because this is going to become a big issue. When you are spending 50, 100, 150, 200,000 on these super duper boardrooms, and it all fails because one thing wasn't plugged in properly, that's embarrassing. When there are companies, and I'm trying again not to name any, but there's a company that keeps doing adverts on my YouTube who does remote diagnosis of all the desktop devices in an organization, whether they're Apple, Mac, or Linux. It will control mobile phones, it will control tablets, it can make sure they're all up to date with the software that's required by that organization. They can do all those amazing things. And we can't even tell you if a camera's plugged in. We look stupid. And so will the manufacturers of those cameras look stupid. We need to have a whole concept of taking this to another level. And that's why, quite frankly, when I heard about this product, I said, let me know when you've got something that we can talk about. And I think it's been about 4 or 5 weeks that they've come now. And they have this working, they have it working in Teams, they have it working to a level in Zoom, they have it working on a lot of this equipment. They're not just putting labels on their slides because they look pretty. They are actually working within those environments. I haven't used the software. I will probably try and manufacture a situation so that I can use it in this office. Maybe it bounces. Oh yeah, I can be a remote user, can't I? So I'll probably set up something in here so that I can actually demonstrate it and then look at what protocols they don't have and give them advice on how they can make my bits work better to help me. But I love this whole concept, and I don't know if anyone on YouTube is going to tell me that there's products like this already. I haven't seen any. I've had a look around, and even if there is, then that's great, because competition's always good. But it's satisfied to know that one company is going down the road, and as I name dropped earlier, I'm thinking of them as a sort of a partner to Companion. That Companion's giving us all these fantastic little plugins. No, sorry, they're called modules now, aren't they? But anyhow, whatever they're called, they're not called hubs, and that's for sure. They plug in and they control things, and they allow us to take all these control panels from all these different devices and bring them into buttons on Stream Decks and other devices to control our empires of video production. It's really neat. There are now companies looking at the support level and having conversations with those same devices, so that we know that the equipment works before we start setting up for a production. And as I've said, and as Mike's given some really good examples, we're not so much now in a world where you load something into a van, you drive it to a venue, you unplug it, you get it all working, you take it away again. We are now very much in a world where lots of our equipment is stuck, nailed down in particular production rooms, in home offices, in venues. There's a lot of equipment now that doesn't move, and we need to make sure that that equipment is as reliable as the stuff that we checked and put on a van the night before or the few days before when we took it to the venue. And then we could continue to bluff our 100% record to the customer, because we've got rid of more of all those potential problems that we are always trying to find extra backups and failovers to stop the system working for the customer themselves. We can check equipment remotely and we can verify it remotely. We've got much more confidence when we get to a venue or we're connecting venues without having to send all our engineers everywhere to check everything personally. And I'm really chuffed to have found out about this. And thank you to Morbit for bringing it to my attention. But more importantly, thanks you to Mike for being here, because I understand the principle, Mike, and I can relate it to a few bits of equipment. I know I've got a bit more than a few, but you know what I mean. I've only got, I don't know, maybe only 4 or 5 different manufacturers' equipment here, because I'm trying to stick to one manufacturer. But this is something that we really want to work across a whole industry to bring them all up to a level where we can have confidence in all their equipment.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I'm just thinking too, you're mentioning, and we actually just got a question from Tony on YouTube, and I'll get to that in momentarily, Tony. But I'll just finish my thought by saying is that, you know, when you're bringing up BitFocus Companion, of course, BitFocus Companion and the communities have done that. The manufacturers and people in the community have done that, where they basically taken a lot of the APIs from the manufacturers themselves and built the BitFocus Companion so that you could actually control it. Again, this would be something for Morbid, if you are watching us today, well, we hope you are, to actually take a look into how BitFocus Companion is doing all its conversing with the gear already, and see if that could be helpful for you to go through the list of, oh, these are already important to the industry of ours. Then we go from there going, okay, so if we look at all these different manufacturers already, that gives them already a starting block of going, we'll pick the big guys out of all this list, you know, because there's all kinds of different manufacturers in there that they could easily go after right away. And it would be a matter of going, you know, what gear would you actually leave at a remote location that is in more the pro AV world as compared to the video conferencing world? And then going, okay, and then start looking at how BitFocus Companion is already talking to those gear, and then also take it to the next level of going, okay, maybe there's stuff that BitFocus Companion is not even doing that is still available.
Mike Latta,
They can go down that road too.
Is genius. That is absolute genius. You are totally right. I am flabbergasted that I didn't even think of that. That is fantastic. That's what a coder should have thought of, but no, you thought of it. That is genius. If you want to know equipment that you can talk to, and therefore you could add to the list of stuff that Morbit supports, all you need to do is go down the list of all the things that Companion can already communicate with. That is genius. And I now feel really embarrassed I didn't think of it before.
It's already tested and true, right? Because the modules are being used daily. So it's not that they are reinventing the wheel per se in that regards. They've got now the master list per se.
Yep.
And BitFocus Companions modules. And then they just have to go, okay, so what are they doing?
Yeah.
Can we even use these modules in our equipment, in our software? Because that would be the ultimate too, is that all of a sudden, if they did, taking again, because BitFocus Companion is open source, having Morbid actually conversing with BitFocus themselves and going, okay, can we actually implement your modules? I know John's brain's going, because I'm going right off the cuff here. And Tony, I swear we're going to get to your question next, where you could actually get to the point of, can I actually, so every time the modules get updated, people could actually upload the module master list or the module master zip as the new versions keep coming out. as long as our software follows Bitfocus, how Bitfocus reads the, the actual code in the modules, as long as our agents are Bitfocus companion friendly, then their modules are already built for them because the community's built in them. Yeah, I've blown
Okay, so
John's
I'm lost for words. I'm lost for words. You're a double genius.
But yeah,
Oh dear me.
that's
I got
that's
nothing to
all.
say apart from Tony. Tony, give us something to catch him out. To ask us a question that's really
All right. So Tony's question is, what objections do you anticipate from network admins?
great
I
question.
know. Yeah. What objections do you anticipate from network admins with respect to security implementations? Security implications.
Okay.
Big words from Tony. Loving you already this afternoon already. On the phone.
I'm just being outdone here by again. That's another genius question. Fortunately, I did think of this one, so I am guessing that security admins won't like this. They don't like anything because anything they add, they then have to secure and worry about. But the big thing about this is that there is no external holes in the network that have to be created for this product. This product talks out of the network to the central dashboard of Morbit, whatever it is. And so there is no external connections from there. Yes, they are probably going to want to know how secure the main server is, because they'll be concerned that somebody maybe could hack that and then find out about their devices. But at the point that they're using it at the moment, this is primarily a monitoring program. In itself, it is not interfering with the machines. They have built it as a monitoring program. The things that we've been talking about, the updating and the configs and everything like that, that's very much down to the equipment that they have supplied by the manufacturer and the facilities the manufacturer has to allow that sort of remote control and servicing. And in a way, that's the point where I would switch it back to the security guys to say, do you realize that anybody in your network can turn off your CEO's IP camera? So you have a security flaw in your network already. If you've protected that properly, then it's no less secure than it was before. So they will be obviously interested in knowing where these hubs are positioned, and maybe they will have a good idea of where they would like the hubs to be positioned in the network so that they can control things. But it's an internal network problem rather than an external network problem, for my mind. And if there are any holes, it's because they were there already. Sorry, Mike, you've got a better answer than me now, haven't you?
Yeah. No. I was going to say, John's right, where you would probably have this Norbit system, potentially either local, or if you did want to have it remotely back at your office, then of course your network admins would definitely suggest, and I would expect them to suggest, that there be some sort of VPN tunnel from one location to the other location so that the agents then can talk back to your system back at your office. So that would be where I would go down that road of security implications. But it looks like actually, John, they've already taken this into consideration. Show me.
It just so happens that I have a slide out of the slide deck, which I can show you. And this is the process that they go through to connect. I'm not sure I completely understand everything they say here, but I'm pretty sure I understand the principles. So we start with the login security at the end of the system. We have a validation with corporate single sign-ons is supported, which I love that. And then we have an IP locked tunnel we have obscure ports, we have local credentials, and the system will get bored and reset after 60 minutes, whatever you do. So if you go and fix something and then forget and wander off, it's got a built-in 60-minute timeout that you have to restart the whole process again. So that's how they explain the system. So I think they've had a good look at this. They are using secure tunnels, and I think it's a pretty professional solution.
Yeah. And as it says there at the bottom, John, it says all remote sessions are time limited. So there you go. So there's that 60-minute limit, IP bound, and MFA validated and fully audited. So there you go. So that should appease your network admins a bit. And Tony's coming back and saying we're impressive. Yes, so it is. They are taking into consideration. John, do you happen to know a little bit of history of Norbit that you could speak to about their? It feels to me that they are very tech savvy. They've been around where they've taken this into consideration of network admins are going to come back and go, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this.
How can I put this politely? I'm a systems process guy. It sounded like a good story, but I don't think I could relate it accurately enough to want to mention it now. So sorry to disappoint everybody, but you can go to their website and learn a bit more about them there. But I don't think I want to give my version of their Genesis story. But yeah, they have been around for a while. They saw this process, they saw this problem, and now they just have a bunch of engineers who, now they've got the main system working. They've really got a bunch of engineers there just to build the protocols as they need them. And that's why I think your suggestion of go and have a look at the list of Companion, because that's going to, rather than have to go to each manufacturer and have that conversation with each manufacturer, Companion is going to give you a source of manufacturers and products that already have the ability to be talked to because they talk to Companion. And why not start there and just work through that list? Because there's a lot of equipment there that probably people wouldn't even think of to start with.
That's right. That's right. And again, it really depends on, what equipment is, because again, a lot of the equipment that is in the BitFocus Companion list is, some of it is equipment which we would call install equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And some of it is actually what we would call Pro AV equipment, which you'll say, but Mike, that's the same thing. It is and it isn't. Where the Pro AV equipment would be potentially could be installed. As an example, you could actually have a big church that actually has a huge audio mixer in the venue, but it's there. It never moves. But that audio mixer in the production world could be one of those models that actually could move too. So it's one of those scenarios of, is it there or is it portable? Right. So there are gear that are both, but there are gear that are especially made specifically to be only installed as compared to being portable. So BitFocus Companion already has modules for both categories in my mind.
Yeah. So have we've impressed our questioner. That's good.
Yes,
It
we have.
impressed me, and I think we've tantalized Mike, and that's always good as well. We'll have to get his equipment on the list as soon as possible. But that's it, really.
There's a bit of a hint there too, Johnny, because our equipment's already BitFocus Companion compatible.
Ah, yeah. So we know we can talk to it.
We know.
So that's the show. It's slightly different, I expect, for a lot of you, but I think it's a really key issue, a really important issue. And I'm glad I found the issue and found somebody who's addressing the issue rather than finding the issue and having no way to address it. So that's really cool. Don't know if I can be this off the wall next week. Probably going to be a bit more boring, like about real production equipment in funny places. But apart from mourning the fact that my room is fantastic, but the hallway can't take 100-inch TVs, so I can't show you that today. I can't show you that tomorrow, and unless I take the windows out, I can never show you until I move to my new property. But never mind. Some bits of hardware were never meant to be. This bit of equipment, though, will at least tell me if my TV ever turns up, whether it gets to be plugged in.
Yes, and if it's got a network capability, you can see if it's actually turned on or not, depending on how smart it is.
Indeed, indeed. I am a Samsung man, and I can tell you, without looking anywhere further than this desk, that my fridge door is closed, my TV is off, and so is my washing machine. So there you are. It all works somewhere, somehow. Thank you very much for being with us.
Yeah. You ready to wrap it up there, John, for this week?
My status is I'm worn out. Yes.
I've blown his mind. That's good. So I hope everybody takes this away and thinks about it a little more and takes a look at Norbid's website, which looks to be norbid.co. So norbid.co.uk.
Yeah.
Check them out.
And if you've got a particular piece of equipment that you want them to support, why not just put it in the comments and we'll pass them all on.
Yeah, absolutely. In the comments, either comments with us here on Zoom in the Webinar Plus, or of course, in the comments underneath us on YouTube. Absolutely. Because we'll have Norbert check out our comments so that they can get feedback. But on that note, Johnny, I guess we'll wrap it up for this week's show. Take care, everyone. Have a great weekend. And for all our US friends, have a great long weekend. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel to let YouTube know how much you love our content. And we're here every Friday from 12 p.m. Eastern. And I'm going to do it right this time, Johnny, because I'm thinking about it. 9 a.m. Pacific. Right here on YouTube, live. And we are the Production Professionals Power Hour. Take care, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
Come on, yeah. Lights go up and the cameras roll. Voices clear and we're in control. Screens are live and the signals flow. Welcome to the place where the pros all go. Talking gear and the tools we trust. What works well and what gathers dust. From the studio floor to the online stage, we bring the knowledge page by page. Live or hybrid, in room or remote. Every shot and every note. Better system, sharper sound. This is where the best is found. It's the Production Professionals Power Hour. Building better shows with skill and power. Live hybrid online too. Ooh.